welcome back to the Wellness Paradox podcast. I'm so grateful that you can join us on this journey towards greater human flourishing. As always, I'm your host, Michael Stack, an exercise physiologist by training and a health entrepreneur and a health educator by trade. And I'm fascinated by a phenomena that I call the wellness paradox. This paradox, as I view it, is the lack of interaction and communication between fitness and wellness professionals and our medical and other allied health professionals. This podcast is all about closing off that gap by disseminating the latest, most evidence-based, and most engaging information in the health sciences. And to do that in episode 29, I'm joined by Adam Schafer from Mindpup Media. Mindpup Media is an amazing company that does a lot of amazing things. And I'm going to link up to many of the great things that they do in the show notes. But among the things they do, they have a podcast that they produce that is one of the largest, if not the largest, health and wellness podcast on the planet. And there's a number of topics that Adam and any number of the people from the Mindpup team came to talk about. But the one that I chose to focus on for this episode was sales. For the fitness and wellness professionals that are listening, we know we're going into the new year, which is typically the busier season for us. And there might not be a better time to talk about this concept of sales. And as I mentioned in the episode, sales is kind of the dirty 5-letter word in the helping professions. So we don't want to make it seem like we're taking people's money, like we're the greasy, grimy used car salesman. And the reason that I picked Adam to talk about this, and the reason that I think his philosophy so resonated with me, is, as he'll explain, this is not a process of sales. This is a process of building a relationship with somebody, building value in that relationship. And he has several decades of experience to lean on, not only selling himself as a fitness professional, but also helping other fitness and wellness professionals sell their services, in amongst a wealth of other knowledge that he's going to drop on this episode with regard to social media, building a brand presence, and some actual tactical steps that you can take to start to market and sell your business, regardless if it's inside of a commercial health club, it's a virtual business, if it's a boutique, or any combination of those three. I think a lot of these lessons cut across all the different domains of our industry. Any additional information that we want to share from this episode can be found on the show notes page by going to wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 29. Please enjoy this conversation with Adam Schafer. Today, we're excited to be joined by Adam Schafer from Mindpup Media. Adam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this conversation because this is going to be a bit of a business and a sales conversation, which we don't always have the luxury of being able to have these conversations. But before we dive into that, I think it would be really helpful, Adam, if you just gave us a little bit of idea of your personal background that you're bringing into the discussion.
Yeah. So, and I like that we're going in the direction of business and sales, because that was my strength in what I did. So I was a personal trainer, been a personal trainer now for 2 decades or over 2 decades. Much of my career, I trained and developed other trainers. And much of the success I had in my career was actually teaching the business side. Ironically, right before you and I got on, we were actually just having this conversation because somebody asked me about how I used to program as a trainer early on, because they wanted advice on writing programs. And I said, you're asking the wrong question for me, because I was not good at programming. I had very minimal knowledge when it came to biomechanics, nutrition. And so that came later on in my career. What I was really good at early on was the business side, was actually helping trainers actually build their business. One of the things I found when I got into the fitness space and started training out of a big commercial gym, 24-hour fitness as a personal trainer, was a lot of the conversation was around biomechanics and nutrition and physiology. And, the trainers that were touted as the greatest and the best were extremely knowledgeable leaders in fitness. And not a lot of people were talking about making money. It was kind of taboo. It was like, you get in this position to help people. It's not about making money. Most people that fall into personal training, it's more of a passion type of a job. But the reality was I did want to make good money. And I was looking for people that had knowledge on how to scale a trainer business. And there just wasn't a lot of it 20 years ago. And there's a few people that I found, like the Bedros Koulians and stuff like that I was tracking and following. Joe DeFranco was around that time, even though he didn't do a lot of business talk. He was more sports performance, but very few fitness leaders were talking about business. And that's kind of what I brought to 24-Hour Fitness. I got thrusted into the leadership role at a very young age. By the time I was 22, I was managing a staff of about 20 trainers, all of which were older, more experienced, probably even smarter than I was. But I had a knack for the business side, and I had the ability to coach and train them on building and scaling their business, and had a lot of success working for that company. Was there for almost 10 years. Took a slight left turn for a little bit and opened up 2 of the first medical marijuana clubs in the Bay Area, while I was also scaling a boot camp business. So I had one of the largest boot camp businesses in the Bay Area. I had trainers working underneath me and running outdoor boot camps, while I was also scaling the cannabis clubs. That's a whole nother story and podcast in itself talking about that. But what it did do was it made me realize how much passion I had for health and fitness. I was chasing still at that time in my life, money and success. And I obtained this number in this, arbitrary number I had in my head through the medical marijuana field, and was probably the most unhappy I'd ever been in my life. So I had the deepest pockets, but I was in the worst shape. Relationships were south. My best friends I wasn't seeing very often. I just had a girl who broke up with me, and I just was not in a good place. And yet I was at this dollar amount that I thought that I needed to achieve to find happiness, and I really wasn't. And that's what led me back into fitness, was realizing that no longer am I pursuing it for money, but because it fulfills me. And it was nice because I did do a good job of making a nice little cushion for myself. So I really could kind of look at the landscape of the fitness space and go, okay, what do I want to do exactly when I get back in this? And I just saw a huge opportunity in the e-commerce and the social media side of things. At that time, this is now like 8-9 years ago. Facebook, people were starting to explode. Instagram was just kind of coming on the scene. YouTube was scaling rapidly. And you were seeing a lot of these influencer trainers that were providing a lot of fitness and health advice, and were making a lot of money and having a lot of success doing it. And when I was watching what they were saying and doing, a lot of it was counter to what I had learned over the years of training real clients. And I thought, wow, a lot of this advice from some of these people that have the most followers and attention is not really good. A lot of it's bad. And I don't say that trying to be a hater. I think that a lot of these kids that blew up on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook were just young. We're young and inexperienced, just like I was when I was in my early 20s. And it just takes years of training clients before you start to pick up on some things that are probably more important to focus on than some of the stuff that you were communicating when you were 22 years old. And so I just saw a huge opportunity. I saw a massive opportunity to make my way into this social media space, and then to build an e-commerce business off of that. And that is really the birth of Mindpup Media. I partnered up with Sal, Justin, and Doug, and together we scaled this thing. At that time, Sal had already written a digital program with Doug before we ever even met. Justin and I were working on a virtual app that we were building together. My job at that time with the two of us was to finance the project and then to go find the audience. So I turned on YouTube, I turned on Facebook, I turned on Instagram. First time in my life, I was never somebody who was on really social media. I come from that generation of still liking the human connection and being in person. And so I kind of skipped diving into all that, but I did see the opportunity. And so I turned it on with that intention, with the intention of, can I build a network of people around me and then use that network to either monetize through the app or monetize through this digital program that my newfound partner had to sell. And that is how Mindpump was created. We saw that the podcast space was a great medium for what we wanted to communicate. Things like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter is so fast and small amount of characters. And we know that fitness is a much longer conversation and it's very individualized. And the podcasting space just provided that. It provided an opportunity for us to speak for an hour to 2 hours at a time to talk about all the nuances of health and fitness and all the behavioral aspects that come with it, and not just the basic X and O's or a small snapshot of what you should or shouldn't be doing. And we kind of fell into it. And when we started podcasting, We saw the people in our space, the conversations they were having, and we thought there was a niche there for us that nobody was really doing. And what it looked like back then, even though I think it was pretty terrible when we first started, was the conversations that we were having with clients. We wanted to have those same conversations on air so people could tune in and kind of get the behind the scenes or behind the curtain type of conversations that we would have with clients. And I have two other partners that are brilliant trainers themselves. And then these people could peer in on these conversations and hear this dialogue and debate around all the nuances of health and fitness. And we thought we'd put it out there and see if it got traction. And it did. It grew, and it grew slowly. It wasn't like an overnight success. It was, little by little. One of the things I absolutely love about my business partners, we all had the same idea. We're going to do this. None of us have any experience in social media. None of us have any experience on podcasting. We're probably going to suck. But the information that we have, we knew was valuable. The stuff that we wanted to give to the audience, we knew was valuable, and that we would get better and better at communicating that over time. And eventually the audience would come. And that's exactly how it happened. Just week over week, month over month of being consistent with episodes and putting out content and refining it. It just slowly scaled over time. And now we're the largest health and fitness podcast in the world and doing over 3.5 million downloads a month. And we've built many arms to the business. So Mindpup Media is the parent company. We have Mindpup Investments and Maps Fitness Products underneath that, where we do a lot of other things. But that's really the bulk and the shortest version of building this business I could give you.
I love it. I love it. There's so many gems in that story that I wish we can go down the rabbit hole of like 5 or 6 of them in terms of how your career twisted and turned. I think what resonated with me, I started as an in-gym personal trainer in 1999, working for Valley Total Fitness, which doesn't exist anymore. And I, very similarly to you, I was a 21, 22, 23-year-old managing a personal training program in a gym, managing people 10, 15 years older than me. And it causes you to grow up. But I think the thing that I love most about your story is how you just kept iterating and how you kept growing and how you kept learning, and you chased the dollar and realized that wasn't worth the chase. And now you've came back here. And again, I think I could want to take this conversation in a lot of directions, but clearly for you to have the entrepreneurial mindset that you have, as well as to have not only scaled successful businesses in a commercial health club, but also scaled a successful online training business, a successful media company as well. You have a lot of lessons on sales and marketing and branding. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. And you said it earlier. I think sometimes sales is looked at in fitness as like the dirty 5-letter word. Like we're supposed to be here to help people, not worry about getting their money. But if we don't get their money, we're not here for very long. So how do we even begin to unpack this concept for people from a sales perspective? It's a big topic. And, not only that, I think it's a topic that people don't like to approach. So when you were coaching your trainers in that 24-hour fitness, or even how you think of it now, where do we start to begin to think about this concept?
I love that question. I love this conversation because I do think it's one of the most valuable things that we can provide for the fitness community, because you said it perfectly. It's this, the 5-letter bad word that nobody wants to talk about. But the truth is, if you don't have a business, if you don't sell anybody personal training, you don't really have a business, and then you're not going to be around very long to help anybody. So the first thing is understanding that all sales really is effective communication. So, and that you do that all day long, all the time. If you're married and you go home and you and your wife are trying to decide what to eat for dinner or what movie Netflix series you're going to sit down and watch, somebody is closing somebody. Whether you believe it or not, somebody wants to watch one of the other. Maybe your guys' ideals align, and it's a very easy discussion, and you guys go right into it. But you're always doing that. You're always selling somebody on your idea on how to do something or what you want to do, and so it's just effective communication. And if you just take the part of asking for money out of it, that's the part that it gets all freaked out, and just learn to be a better communicator. I think that the sales piece will start to come. So I used to say this in my sales meetings to my trainers. I'd ask them, what is the difference between a good closer and a great closer? And I'd see puzzled looks, and then I have some people that would try and take a guess. And I said, here's the deal. A good closer read all the Tom Hopkins books and the Zig Ziglars and knows how to overcome an objection. So you say something, you say an objection, they overcome it. They say another objection, they overcome it. They wear you down until you get to after 7 or 10 of them. And then you finally say, okay, give up. And they say, yes. That's a good closer, has the ability to overcome that. A great closer can ask the right questions to pull you into a sale. And it's a beautiful thing when you learn to do that, because it doesn't feel disgusting. It doesn't feel pushy. And you don't give people buyer's remorse when you pull them into a sale, when they ask for it, when they want to buy from you. And that's really the goal that I'd always teach my trainers is like, the goal is not for you to open up the Prezo binder and start trying to present money right away. If you haven't got them to ask you, how much do you cost? Or what would this cost to do this? Or how much is personal training? If they don't ask you that question, you're not doing your job and you're not ready to sell them yet. You haven't built enough value in them to get them to ask that question. No matter what decision we're talking about, it always comes down to two things: value and price. And if somebody sees that this thing, and then we make this decision every single day. You're wearing a shirt right now. You're probably wearing a pair of sneakers. Those things, you paid a certain price for it. What made you make that ultimate decision was you found that shirt or those shoes valuable enough for the price that they paid. If I asked you, would you pay $10,000 for that exact same shirt? You probably say no to me. Well, why is it? Because it's not worth that much to you. So the same thing goes for when you're convincing someone to buy personal training or to invest in you, is you have to build enough value in yourself that when it does come to money, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal because you're worth that. And that's where I think the disconnect is for a lot of trainers, is they come into this space insecure, afraid of talking about money, and they don't know how to build value in themselves, and they don't know how to ask the right questions to get somebody to ask them, how much do you cost?
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to ask one quick question to get you to clarify, and then we're going to dive a little bit more into that value concept. You said value and price. And I think when a lot of people hear those two words initially, particularly people that aren't in the business or the sales world, they're like, oh, well, aren't those like really the same thing? But so in your mind, define the difference between, value and price, just so we're clear on it. And then I'm curious to know your thoughts on how you feel a fitness professional goes about building that value effectively.
So the way I would communicate it to trainers is, and it takes a lot of courage, self-awareness, and responsibility to really say that anybody that walks away from me, meaning they don't invest in me, they don't buy personal training, is my fault. And it's my fault because I didn't build enough value. Okay. I didn't show them that whatever dollar amount that they were going to spend, that what I was going to be providing for them far out exceeds that. And that's the difference between the value and price. Just like the shirt analogy that I gave you. I mean, if that shirt helped you make $100,000 more a year because it's that valuable, because it provided that much value to you, then you would pay $10,000 for it. But it really just keeps you warm a little bit, makes your arms look kind of good, fits you well, matches your shoes. That's maybe worth, I don't know, for you, $50, $60. And that's going to be different and unique for every person. So you can't have this exact same spiel that says, okay, this is what the value of personal training, and then this is what the price is, because value is defined by each individual. So that's what I meant by asking all the right questions too, is when I'm sitting down with an assessment with somebody, I really got to get to the bottom of why they're here. First of all, I'm commending them for sitting there, because they did the hardest thing. They got here, right? They made the decision to get off their couch at home, come through those doors, sit down with me, talk about health and fitness. And they did the hardest part. So first of all, I want to commend them for doing that, right? Let them know that, listen, that you did one of the hardest things. Next thing that we need to figure out is exactly what you want from this. And you got to ask those questions so you then know how to build the value for them. For example, if you're a trainer and your only way to present to somebody is based off of fat loss, right? So when I was exiting the fitness space, they had just came up with like goal calculators that the computers would have, and I could type in somebody's age, their weight, and then their goals. If they want to lose 30 pounds, and I put it in there, and then it would spit it off like, oh, this should take you 15 to 17 weeks to accomplish this goal. And so then trainers, that was a very useful tool. So the trainers had something they could show clients, oh, it would take you this long to lose the weight, therefore we need this much training. Okay, well, that works when somebody is like, all I want to do is lose 30 pounds. It's very important to me. And that's all you're hearing from them. That's what's so important. That's what's valuable to them, is getting those 30 pounds off. But there's a lot of people, that's not what it is. Some people just want to feel better. Some people want to build confidence. Some people want to get rid of the aches and pains in their joints. And if all you're talking about is them losing 30 pounds and how long it's going to take them to, you're not going to connect. You're not going to be able to show the value and what you have to provide for them by communicating only that way. And that's what makes this or makes a good trainer or a great trainer and an effective communicator, is the ability to listen first, hear what it is they're saying to you that they want or what they need, and then be able to explain to them how you're going to provide that for them or help them find their way on their fitness journey, right? So that is the most important piece, to be able to do that in order to provide value, because value is going to be different per person. And you've got to do your due diligence of asking a lot of the questions before you decide how you're going to build value in yourself. Because if you're speaking to one thing like fat loss, and all this person's really telling you is, I just want my husband to love me like he used to when I was 25 and we first got married, or I just want to be able to run around and play with my kids, or I'm just so tired of my low back hurting me, or my doctor said I need to do this for X, Y, and Z. Like, you got to really listen and ask the right questions to hear where it is that you can provide them the most service. And now with education and experience comes the ability for you to be able to service a lot of those needs. A lot of trainers, when they first come in, they're very one-dimensional. They've only learned one certification. They've only trained one type of client. So they do really good with building value for those types of clients. If I'm really good at getting fat loss, I know how to use that calculator, but that's my one thing. I lose a lot of those other clients to the presentation because I'm not speaking to them. I'm not building value for them. I'm only communicating to this one type of client. So, educating yourself, growing your knowledge base, getting experience, and then learning how to truly listen to someone when they're telling you the things that they want out of this relationship. That is the key to you building value. And my goal always is to build so much value in it that price almost becomes insignificant. And that sounds crazy to trainers when you first tell them that. But that was always my goal as both a trainer and as a manager in the space was, can I continue to just tell this person all the things we're going to be working on and we're going to be doing for them to get them to just commit to a time frame or how often they see me without even money coming out? Like, that's my goal is to not make this a money thing. Like, I don't want to turn it into like, oh, there's a sale going on, or, oh, if it was $20 cheaper, I would do it. Because there's a lot of things that we make decisions based off of that $20 to $500 doesn't make the difference. We're all driving a car. I guarantee that the car you drove, if it was $500 more or less, probably didn't decide whether you were going to drive that car or not. Okay, so then why does the car have that much value and something that is someone that is helping you with your health and fitness, which in turn could completely change your life and improve everything, including how long you live and the quality of your life? I would argue that that's more valuable than some car that gets you from point A to point B. So, but it's because there's a perceived value already with this vehicle. There isn't a perceived value sometimes with personal training because it's completely new to the consumer. The consumer comes in and doesn't exactly know what a trainer provides, or maybe they have an idea and they think it's just a glorified counter or someone who writes a meal plan. And it is your job to build that value in what it is that you do for them, so that they look at it like they're purchasing a vehicle, a home, or like any other investment they make in their life, that they're not balking over a few $100s north or south.
Yeah, that's great. And you said something a moment back that I think is so important to point out. You talked about what somebody wanted out of the relationship. And what I'm struck by with everything you're saying is that this is the way you frame it up. This is not a transactional process. And this has been my experience in the industry, I think, which is very similar to yours, is that typically in a lot of the big box organizations, and I'm not knocking them because they have a model that they have to proliferate. It's very much a, you give me money, I give you fitness kind of thing. It's a transactional relationship. What you're talking about here by building value is building value in that relationship, which is a little bit more of the long game.
That's 100% right. And what you're touching on is why I think Bally's 24-hour fitness has plummeted for the last 2 decades. Is because I was a part of the era of before and after when they changed that model. You're absolutely right. I'll never forget when Carl Liebert, who was the former CEO of Home Depot and was responsible for the auto checkout. So Carl Liebert, CEO of Home Depot, was the CEO that brought the self checkout to Home Depot, completely revolutionized how people check out at Home Depot. He was on the path to do the same exact thing for 24-hour fitness. Those of us that had been in fitness already for a decade saw the writing on the wall and thought it's not the same. You don't show up to the gym and like you buy a PVC pipe or a 2x4 where you have a very specific thing that you're looking for. You have a very specific price point. We're inevitably we're selling a dream to somebody, right? We're selling an idea, something that they can't touch and walk out with. It's completely different, and it takes that human element to build that. And I knew that this was going to be one of the downfalls of 24-hour fitness, and we've seen exactly that. We've seen that company take a nose. I mean, Bally's doesn't even exist anymore. 24-hour fitness has continued to do a nosedive for the last maybe 15, almost 20 years. And it's a lot of that, I think, is because they got away from that personal touch. They started paying personal trainers less, and they started looking at it as like a basic transaction service base, stopwatch guy, counter. That's all they do. Oh, we'll make everything digitalized for people and generic. And it's just, that's unfortunate, because where I made my bones in this business was teaching trainers how to individualize this for the person and how to build this tremendous value in yourself through what you are going to do for them. And it takes a very unique trainer to do that. And an algorithm and a piece of software is never going to replace that. And I actually think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that those big gyms made.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear you say that, because as you're talking about that, I'm also struck by the part of our industry that has undergone the most rapid growth in that same period of time you're referring to. And it is the boutique. It is the CrossFit box. It's businesses that are based on personal relationship and personal connection. And it was like, as the big boxes went this way, the other gyms went that way because they were emphasizing relationships. And I think there's no better economic example than that.
I think you're spot on with that. In fact, I talk about this on my show all the time, that one of the greatest things that CrossFit ever did was brought back the community element of gyms. Yep. And if you're old enough or you know anything about fitness, the fitness space and the evolution of it, that was really the culture early on. It was very, back in the day, you knew everybody who went to the gym because not a lot of people did. It was very community based, and not a lot of people had headphones on. There was music going on in the place, but you were talking to people and interacting, and it was very community driven. And then it scaled and scaled and scaled and scaled. And then it did turn into a race to the bottom, as I would say, of trying to price cut and get under and all about volume. And it lost it. And there's some brilliant people, and CrossFit being one of them, that saw that. Greg Glassman, seeing that, he had some good things that he did also with deadlifting and squatting and bringing back some incredible fundamental movements that I think that people were starting to neglect. But the number one thing that they did well was the community aspect. And you're right. We see the Orange Theories, we see the F45s, we see these boutiques, and the thing that I talk about on the show is there's nothing revolutionary about any of those. There's nothing life-changing or different. It's just that they have focused back on community so much. And what we're seeing is how powerful that is. And you're absolutely right. This is the era of the boutique gym right now for that exact reason.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And you're sitting there talking about the community atmosphere. And the first thing that my mind goes back to, and maybe yours does as well, I think about the old pumping iron, like with the birth of our industry in California with Arnold and Franco Colombo and all those guys at Gold's Gym. That was that. And if you've ever seen that environment, these were competitors that were fiercely competing for actual prize money, albeit a very small amount of prize money back then. And they were as friendly and amicable with each other as you could imagine. No one was wearing headphones. And it is funny that that is part of the roots of our industry.
Oh, 100%. And we all love to tell that story. And Pumping Iron is for sure one of the favorite shows that all of us watch. I think Sal's watched that show more than anybody. And it's right. And they did a great job. Kudos to all the guys and girls that created these businesses that was getting back to that community. And there's something for everybody that listens to this podcast that is looking to possibly either start their own franchise or build their own business. The value of community. You don't need to be some big, massive franchise. in order to learn how to do this. I had, like, on a much smaller scale, I had boot camp businesses all over the Bay Area, and I understood this. So even though I had somebody who took a 6 p.m. class, and then another person that took a 5 a.m. class, and somebody that was on a Saturday only, once a month, I would get all the groups together so we could, and I would actually give out recipes and teach people about nutrition. It was just a way to bring everybody together. We could learn together. We could hang out and eat and make it very social. There was a lot of power and value in building that community feel. It's just, people want to feel. We're social creatures by nature. So building a business that is isolating people is not an ideal way to do things. And I think the fitness space started off very community driven, but as it grew, it started to grow apart. And I think we're seeing that coming back together. And so now, for me, if we could just find that community feel with also great programming, I think is like the ultimate. Which, for those that are listening, that there's still lots of opportunity in this space for people to do it better. So I think there's a lot of exciting things that are still happening in our space.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, only 15 to 20% of the American public goes to a gym and fitness center anyway. So that means there are far more people out there that aren't utilizing our services than are. So let's get tactical for a second here as we kind of move towards finishing this out. In my mind, there's almost like 3 categories of people that I'd kind of like you to speak to. There's the in-gym personal trainer, the person that's working at the 24-hour fitnesses, the LA Fitnesses of the world. There's that person. There's the person who now is like, wow, this virtual thing is a real deal. Like, the pandemic has allowed me to kind of start my own business by myself. And then there's the person that maybe is kind of in the middle, which is like, man, I may want to start my own boot camp business, or I might want to franchise my own F45. So maybe just, really quickly, if you can give, a couple of tactical strategies, or maybe even one for each, starting with the in-club personal trainer. We're coming up on January. It's the busy season. What should these people be thinking about in club in terms of the sales, marketing, and value building?
So this is actually a really fun conversation, because I believe this is evolving before our eyes as you and I literally speak today. Like, me talking to this right now versus me talking to the same exact point maybe 5 or 7 years probably would sound completely different. In fact, the old adage or advice that one might give to, so speaking is, I would speak to each one of those as individuals and say, hey, here's where you need to niche down. Here's the things that you should focus on. Here's where good places to get leads. But the truth is, we live in a very unique time right now where I actually think that you are completely missing out if you are not taking advantage of all of them. So maybe you're an in-person, you work for a big company, or maybe you work at a private gym and you do a lot of in-person training. I do not think you should neglect the other two because of that. I think there's tremendous value in acquiring real estate in both, as like Gary Vee would say, right? So look at it as you have all these social platforms out there, and you making a name for yourself on each one of those platforms is like an asset to you. Is, even if it only drives 1 to 5 leads a year, it's 1 to 5 leads a year you wouldn't get if you wouldn't be doing it. Now, I'll ask a question for you that I think is a good follow-up to where we're going right now, which is, okay, Adam, then how would you start if you were to start all over again? What would that look like? And so this is the advice I give. So let's talk about this trainer who is training inside the big box gym. I would also turn on my Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, whatever platform you like best. And the way I would decide what platform I like best is, what kind of communicator are you? So if you're a visual person and you like taking really cool pictures, Instagram might be for you. If you like writing long posts and you have a lot to say and you write well, maybe Facebook or blogging is really good for you. If you got a personality and you just have a knack for the camera and you don't mind talking to it like you're talking to millions of people, then maybe YouTube is a great platform for you. If you're really smart and have a lot to say, maybe a conversation on a podcast. But these are all different mediums that provide tremendous value to different people that you can do to complement your in-person business. And the way I would create content on any of those, whichever, doesn't matter which one we're talking about, would be to complement my in-person business. So for example, this is what it would look like, to be very specific. I'm training Susie today. Susie came in. It's our, first couple sessions we've been together, and she has had knee surgery. I'm a relatively new trainer. This is my first client. I've never rehabbed somebody from knee surgery. I'm nervous. So I'm online researching like all the ins and outs, what to do, what not to do, what exercises she's probably, or what muscles are probably overcompensating, which ones am I probably going to have to stretch, what are some common imbalances. I'm learning. I'm taking all this in because I love this job. I have a person that I want to be able to provide this information for. I get it. I gather. I spend all night, next 2 days, or before our next session, learning off. There's a post, and there's a blog, or there's a YouTube video. Literally take what you just sat down and learned to help and provide value for this one client that you have. It now becomes an Instagram post, or it now becomes a blog, or it now becomes a YouTube episode, or it now becomes a podcast episode. Speaking to, not necessarily, you don't say to that person's name, but speaking to that in general, some things you've learned as a trainer. If you have knee surgery, what to look out for, what not to do, what to do, what muscles might be tight, what exercises are best for this person. There's all kinds of content right there for that one simple thing that you just encountered at your day-to-day type of job. And now you have a piece of content. Do not, and this is a mistake that trainers make, get caught up in the rat race of likes and followers. Likes and followers mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. I've been in this long enough now, especially this space, where I've seen people that make hundreds of millions of dollars and have hardly any followers or no followers whatsoever. And I've met people that have millions of followers and barely make any money whatsoever, or don't make any money at all. So how many followers you have mean nothing. I would much rather attract the type of clientele that I can add value to their life. If I just learned about training somebody with knee surgery and I posted online, I may only attract 2 people in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But guess what? Those 2 people most likely will have found value in that specific content that I posted on one of those platforms. And now I have another lead, and I can speak directly to that person because I'm right in the middle of helping that. That is one example, one post, but just think about where that can go. Like every day you have a new client. Every day you have a new challenge. Every day you are having to research and learn something new that maybe you didn't know. And it could be everything from nutrition to exercise science stuff, to biomechanics stuff, to anatomy stuff, things that you found interesting or valuable that you provided for this in-person client now can live on this platform or medium on social media to provide value for those people and slowly start to attract customers there. And then the next big step to whichever medium you use is to engage with them. So, maybe you only added 5 followers from your 5 posts around, knee pain and rehab stuff. But guess what? Those 5 people, very interested in that. So when they comment, when they DM, when they message you, when they engage with you, engage back and answer and help and provide value. Don't be like the old trainer who tries to put everything behind a paid wall. Like, if you want the answer, you got to pay for personal training with me. Like, don't be afraid to give that information. I tell people this all the time. Our number one revenue stream is our digital programs online. If you've listened to all of our Mindpup episodes, we have given you the formula on how we wrote every single one of those programs. Okay, we've literally given it away for free. So if you really wanted to save the money and not spend the $100 on the program, you could literally go and actually unpack all the episodes, build the programs yourself, and you're good to go. But a lot of people will be so grateful for all the value we've given away for free that they feel like, man, it's almost like they feel like they owe it to us. And that's exactly what made us decide when we would turn on the monetization. Was we started getting messages on a weekly basis back when we were giving free content and selling nothing, and people were trying to give us money. They're like, oh my God, you guys have provided so much value. You've helped me out. You helped my mom out. Where can I donate? Do you have a Patreon? What can I buy from you? And that was the signal for us that, okay, it's time to monetize. Every day we're coming to work and someone is literally trying to give us money for nothing because we've already provided so much value. What happens when we actually give them something else for even more, with more value? How hard is it going to be to make that transaction? Well, it was really easy because, and by the way, the average digital program online is somewhere between 27 and 57. We sell it at a premium at 137 to 157 all day long with no problem. And I know that it's not even as good as far as the UI and the apps and the cool things that are out there right now for super cheap. It doesn't matter because people already feel like they've gotten so much value. They don't mind paying a premium because they know what they're going to get from us is going to be really valuable because what they've already got from us for free. So have that same mindset when you're creating content online, and don't pigeonhole yourself into only one stream. Oh, I'm only going to be the bootcamp guy, or I'm only going to be the online person. Like, I think in today's day and age in fitness, it would behoove you to have real estate in all of it. And then my advice would be focus on 80% of your time on the thing that makes the most money or you're the best at, but don't neglect the other 20% of the time being focused on slowly building assets around you everywhere else. It's like investing.
Dude, that's gold. That's applicable to absolutely everyone, and such a great example. But what I heard you say there is that, particularly with Mindpup, is you have built so much value in the relationship with the consumer that they were wanting to give you money before you're even taking it. But then when you actually ask for money, it doesn't matter what that amount of money is, because you have such a strong relationship and you've built so much value. You've actually taken the dollar figure out of their decision-making model, which is
100%.
What happens when you build value. And that might be to a great extent, the perfect way to sum this up. And I think that is a lesson that we could apply to anyone: in-club personal trainer, online personal trainer. You got a CrossFit box, you have a F45 franchise. It's just, you're documenting the experience. You're letting people see under the hood, and you're building value constantly. And that always comes back to you.
Yeah. There seems to be in our space. I think all spaces, but in our space more so, this bit of this like scarcity mindset. Like we're all fishing from the same pond, which I find is so funny, because you said earlier on the podcast that, only 15% of people are in gyms. It's like, these trainers sometimes think that we're all competing for that 15%. It's like, that's not what Mindpup tried to do. Like, Mindpup wanted to go get the 85 that aren't and encourage them to come on board. There's a massive amount of people. Even if all of us trainers that are all in this space were fully loaded, there still would be opportunity for helping more people. So this idea of being fearful of helping others out, or even plugging other businesses. Here's another thing. Here's another tip for new trainers that are trying to learn here. For some reason, Ben, back to the scarcity mindset, trainers want to, they don't want to build somebody else up in fear that they're going to get the client and I'm not going to get the client. There was a time when I was not knowledgeable, I was not experienced, but yet I was still selling lots of personal training. And I was never afraid to say that I learned this from someone, or go ask this person. They're even smarter than I am in this space. And you become this maven for people. And before you know it, they trust you to direct them anywhere, whether it be for a chiropractor, whether it be for a doctor, whether it be for a nutritionist. It doesn't matter, because you're that person who has that kind of integrity where you're not afraid to talk about somebody else who may win that person's business over. You're willing to do that, knowing that it'll end up paying you back in the long run. And it always does, and at first it may seem scary because it's your livelihood and every client helps you pay the bills and stuff. But that type of mindset will only get you so far. Learning to be this maven, where if you know somebody who knows more about a subject or a topic that somebody has a question about, do not be afraid to farm that out, to point them in the right direction. Because what you'll find out is many times that person will come back to you because they trust that you're going to do that, and you're not just trying to get their money. So lead with that when you're creating content too. Is don't be afraid to plug others. Do not be afraid to share others' content. And piggyback. I mean, for sure, I'm a product of this. So are my two partners. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. The stuff that I talk about is not anything I invented, is not new knowledge that I found or researched. It's that I've accumulated all this knowledge from being around other people far smarter than I am. And I was never afraid to give them the credit where it was due. And I think a lot more people in the fitness space would have a lot more success if they weren't afraid to do the same thing too.
Yeah. You absolutely nailed it. Yeah. There's no new concepts. At least there's no new valid concepts that exist right now. And on that note, as we kind of come to a close here, you guys are obviously an amazing resource, which is why I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and have you to speak to our audience. Where can people go to find out more about Mindpup Media, your podcast, the other things you're doing? I know a lot of our listeners are going to be really interested to be able to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell everybody, if this is the first time you've heard of me or heard of Mindpup, don't buy anything from me. Go take advantage of all the free resources. We have 2 YouTube channels that are loaded with, I don't know, 700 plus videos that are exercise demonstrations, nutritional tips and advice. We take live questions where people call in and give us their problems and we solve them on the podcast. There's clips of that on the YouTube channel. All of that's absolutely free for you to access. We have gained enough domain that you could literally say Mind Pump, and then whatever question you could think of, Google this Mind Pump, and then whatever question you could think of related to health, fitness, nutrition around that. And I've probably got a YouTube, a podcast, a blog, a free white paper, all connected to that. That's how much free content that we have put out there. We even have a website dedicated to that, mindpumpfree.com. Download all the free guides that we've done. The podcast, we're now at 1,700 episodes that we've created on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere that you can find a podcast. Same thing. We also have a free app, Mindpump Media. You can go on that free app, put in whatever topic. It'll populate all the episodes where we talk in long form and in detail about those topics. So take advantage of all that. Go use all the stuff that we have out there free. That's where I send everybody before you even think about buying or investing in anything that we have.
Love it. And if you talk about putting your money where your mouth is in terms of building value first, like if you ever needed a testimonial on someone putting their money where their mouth is, it's that right there. And we'll link up to all that in the show notes page, so everyone has the ability to be able to get to it. For our last question, Adam, I'm going to take us kind of a little far afield from the interview conversation, but it's my specific passion project in fitness, which is how we get fitness and wellness professionals to be a part of the healthcare continuum. I think you and I sitting here would both strongly agree that we are all but left out of the healthcare continuum, and there's no interaction or conversation between fitness and wellness professionals and medical and other allied health professionals. That's what I view the wellness paradox is. From your perspective and all your years of experience in the industry, if you could give one piece of advice to the professionals out there that are trying to close off that gap, can be completely divorced from the conversation today, what would that one piece of advice be?
Be patient. It's coming. So it is coming, man. So we're angel investors in companies, right? So one of the companies that we're invested in is a company called Luna, which is basically the Uber of healthcare. You're going to be able to bypass your general practitioner. Like right now, if you've had chronic shoulder pain, you can't get to the bottom of it. It hurts really bad. Maybe every once in a while, all you do is do cortisone shots, and that's kind of your remedy for it, which we both know that's not ideal. And if you wanted to see a physical therapist, you got to go see your GP. Then he goes and gives you a prescription. Then you go do it. It's this long, unfortunate thing. Well, Luna is a company that is completely cut out the middleman. You'll be able to go directly to them. You will not need a referral to do that. It'll be cheaper and more convenient. The actual physical therapist will come assess you at your house and tell you what you need to do as far as rehab, and or actually take you through sessions where they'll show up to your house and it'll look just like the Uber app. So, we're starting, and they're wanting, the reason why they've connected with us is we see an opportunity for the post rehab, how to do that. We wrote 2 digital programs, MAPS Prime and MAPS Prime Pro, which probably sounds confusing to somebody who has no idea what that is, but it really was the bridge between a rehab client and then like a normal personal training client. We saw there was a major gap there, kind of speaking to what you already know, is that we haven't really done a good job of bridging that. We try to do that digitally, like for a program. Like, what do? You just got out of rehab for your knee surgery. You need to get into weight training, stuff like that, but you're kind of afraid to go hire some 24-hour fitness trainer to work you out. So we wrote a program that addresses all of that. And that's our MAPS Prime Pro program. And so we're working with Luna to probably do some stuff like that. There's another company, it's slipping my mind right now, that is basically an app that allows the general practitioner, the chiropractor, physical therapist, trainer, all to communicate in one hub about a client. So let's say you hire a client and they have this app also. Now, all the notes from the doctor, all the notes from the physical therapist, all the notes from the doctor are all from the trainer are all in one central place. So all of us can review together. Until all this stuff comes full circle, my advice is going back to the Maven thing. Sal was really good at this. I was really good at this. So was Justin. was we built relationships with a lot of these practitioners. You asked me a chiro, I've got the best. You asked me a physical therapist, I've got the best. You asked me a nutritionist, I've got the best. And that's just from years of finding out who's the best at their craft in the area, coming to them. And by the way, coming to them, not asking for anything, providing them value by sending them clients because they do such a great job. And what ends up happening, they reciprocate that. Eventually what happens is they recognize how professional you are, how much value you are to their business. And what ends up happening, it starts coming back the other direction. I've got this PT that I always send my clients that have got chronic stuff that I can't get to the bottom of, and he helps them out. In turn, when he's got people that are ready to go to the gym and go working out, he's sending them my way. So, until we get the, sophisticated apps and we all really start to merge, which I do believe, I want to believe the future of Eastern medicine, Western medicine, all these different practitioners. I mean, my hopes is that it all kind of merges together one day to truly help someone. And I like to think that Mindpump's voice is a lot of that. Like we try and bring that to our community by highlighting all those areas. Like we speak to Western medicine, we talk to Eastern medicine, and we have these professionals on there. And we try to educate our audience. So until the apps and things like that get up to speed, and we have things like that already for everybody, that it's a household name. I mean, get out there as coaches and trainers and build those relationships yourself. I remember when I was first doing this, I would go, even though I didn't need a chiropractor, I'd go pay for sessions so I could hear the way he communicates to me, what he would take me through. And then I could assess like, oh yeah, that guy's really good, or not going to be sending any of my people that way. And that's an investment. I'm not making any money off that. I'm losing money by doing that. But I knew there was tremendous value in me building relationships like that so that I can then refer to my people. And again, if you become this person, and this should be a goal of all coaches and trainers, Sal's talked about this on our show before, you've done a really good job of providing value for someone's life because there's two things that happen in your story arch of a trainer. When I was really young, clients would call, like if a client gets hurt, client gets sick, they call me in and they cancel their session. Hey, Adam, like, oh, I hurt my knee, something happened. Can we reschedule for next week? Or, hey, Adam, I'm not feeling so well. Can we reschedule? And that's when you're early on in your career. That's a normal thing that happens. So, this is not knocking anybody that happens to. Later on in your career, you become the guy or the girl where they get sick, they get hurt, and they call you and they want to see you. They want to come in because they want to hear what you're going to say to them. They want to get the advice from you or the direction on what you should do, because you've already proven to them that if you're not the guy, you've got the guy or girl who can help them. And so they're not going to miss out on their meeting you this week because they don't feel good or they're hurt or something happened they can't get to the bottom of, and you're the person that they trust to give them that advice. That is a really good goal as a coach or trainer, is to reach that level. It's hard to do it through your own education and knowledge only. So branch out and connect yourself, build relationships with those in other fields and expertise.
Love it, man. Such valuable insight. Adam, I really appreciate the time. I think this is going to be a great conversation for a lot of people to hear, and I hope they have a chance to connect with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michael. It was a great time, dude. Great questions.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Adam as much as I did. If you found it valuable and insightful, please do share with your friends and colleagues. Those shares make such a big difference for us. Any information that we'd like to share with you from this episode from Mindpump can be found on wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 29. Please be on the lookout for next week's episode when it drops on Wednesday on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have a moment, please do take the time to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Those reviews can make a massive difference for us. Until we chat again, please be well.